Okay. Welcome, everybody, to the October 24th Planning Board meeting at Town of Eastchester. If we could start by a Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, as you can see, we have 3 board members present, and that's all we will have present. And so any action that needs an approval needs all 3 of us to agree. If for any reason you don't want to be heard as a consequence of that, we'll pick you up next month. But I think we'll be just fine. So let's go through the attendance. Bill West.
Present.
Mark Cunningham.
Present.
And I am Bob Pulaski, acting as the chairman, and that is the 3 board members for tonight. Okay, the agenda for tonight, let me just run through it. And if you will go in this order, and if you don't hear the project, then it's not being heard. Under old business, we have 157 Montgomery, then we have 249 Main Street. Under new business, we have Ray Place, Siwanoy Country Club, Nelson Road, 191 Oakland Avenue, 5 Brassey Road, 16 Crawford Street, and 16 Pasadena Road. With that said, will the first item, 157 Montgomery Avenue, come up? That's, what, 19-19, 157 Montgomery Avenue. So if you would start by just going over the general application, and then if you would advise us of the items that you're coming back to address from the last meeting.
Sure, yeah. Good evening, board members. Adamo Majorano from Community Designs and Engineering. As we said, in regards to our last meeting held last month, in specific, the comments and suggestions by the board and neighboring residents, we did take a second site visit out to the project location, in specific to look at improvements along Dunwoody Street. This is for essentially improvements to the site at 157 Montgomery Avenue. What we are essentially proposing are 4 storage container units. It's a construction yard, and these units will be held to hold material inside an enclosed structure instead of out in the yard. What we changed from our previous meeting was, in specific, the gate entrance to the construction yard. We are proposing an entirely new gate and fencing along Dunwoody Street. This will be a 8-foot high gray slatted chain link fence. This will ultimately help screen the view of the construction yard, as well as the trash enclosures next to the gate and fencing. They will be painted to match the gate as the same color, that gray neutral sort of color. Lastly, just to clarify on the trash enclosures, the trash enclosure that's located in the right-of-way, its sole purpose mainly is just to temporarily, on sanitation days, for the garbage to be placed behind it so that it's not, thrown about in the wind or, kind of scattered amongst, and then it should be replaced back to the trash enclosure that's located in the rear of the residence that's on the property the same day. Other than that, that's our main sort of newly proposed items for the project.
Okay. What you just said about the trash enclosure that's in the right-of-way, did you say that enclosure goes out and then it comes back in?
Exactly. So instead of you know, the garbage pail is being around the street because if this is a multifamily residence, there are, you know,
But the enclosure stays there. It's just the
Okay,
trash can only be taken out to be put within the enclosure. That was the question. So the enclosure stays in place.
Yes.
But the trash can only be taken out a half an hour before sunset, the night before garbage collection, which is a Eastchester law.
Okay, but that enclosure is the white.
The picket
fencing.
Exactly.
And that is, I presume that is allowed to be in the right-of-way.
It is. I spoke to the highway superintendent, and they actually prefer it in the right-of-way. Again, they don't condone having the garbage taken out on other days and being behind that enclosure, but that does help screen it when it is out there on garbage pickup days. Plus, it gives them a place to put the cans back so that they're not just blowing around the street. So the highway superintendent has no problem with it there.
Okay, on the new gate and fencing, did you say that includes slats in the chain link?
yes, yeah, they're gray slats to help screen
Okay.
visibility into the yard.
And the condition of the posts that support that
There'll
gate?
be, yeah, new posts, new, you know, concrete pier to help.
Okay. Okay. Looking for my notes, whether there were other issues on this that we had to resolve.
I can go over some of the issues that were
you
discussed
would.
at the last meeting. Let's see, we had talked about the storage containers, just making sure that they were maintained in a clean, rust-free, and free of rust and peeling paint. We had said that no materials of any kind can be placed on top of the storage containers. Again, we wanted to reiterate that in accordance with the most current garbage, rubbish, and refuse law, no garbage or other waste material or recyclables could be placed within the right-of-way before dusk, defined as 1/2 hour before sunset, the day preceding collection. Mr. Pulaski, you had also talked about concern with regard to idling vehicles. So
Right.
we did quote the law again with regard to that. Vehicles are not allowed to idle either on-site or within the right-of-way for more than 5 minutes.
Very good.
And then, if, for a potential condition of approval, they did prepare a landscape plan. We have our usual condition that the landscape architect provide a letter, signed and sealed letter certifying that it was installed in compliance with the approved plan. And there was one other thing here.
These are all the items that you have written down here,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. You had also, I think it was you that had also raised a question about whether the gate could be closed, whether that created a fire hazard, or somebody did.
I did, yeah.
Yeah, I did speak with the fire lieutenant about that. He's actually going to go back out to the site and just make sure that it meets all egress requirements, so that can be a condition of approval as well.
Okay. Just for the record, what I see out there is you could get off of the fire escape and go a distance away from the building. It's just that if the gate was locked, you wouldn't be able to get out to the
And
roadway.
I think for multifamily housing, that may be a concern, so the fire department will look at that.
Okay.
And I did express that very concern to them.
But if it was more constrained than what I just mentioned, I would be very, very concerned. Okay, so they'll still look at that. And we were also talking about, I think, hours of operation, whether there was any restriction on hours of operation.
Yeah, that I did discuss with the police department, and I think from a building department and a police department perspective, we share a lot of concerns for a variety of reasons with regard to, again, there aren't particular hours of operation, it's just that vehicles can be stored on or off the site, and with regard to some, you know, we don't regulate that for other similar type properties, and with regard to enforcement, I think there's a concern with regard to both, from both departments' perspectives. And
Right.
that has not been at least I have not heard that as a complaint from adjacent residents. It's been mostly the physical appearance of the site and some of the other activities on site.
And I agree. It's just that when we get an application like this and we start to focus on things that the community is upset about and needs to get straightened out, very often they list the items that most concern them, and there are probably many more that don't get listed. So I just wanted to address as many of these as we can. Any items from the board? Okay. I believe this was an open public hearing.
Yes.
So, being that the hearing is still open, anybody from, would you come up and announce yourself and tell us what your concern is?
Good evening, board members. Frank Sweeney, 22 Lakeview Avenue, currently the president of North Eastchester Civic Association. Last meeting, I had kind of suggested maybe as an option that the board members would actually take a on-site visit of the facilities so we could further understand the placement of the containers that were going to be placed there. I'm just trying to determine whether you've had the opportunity since the last meeting to actually visit the site.
I know I have, and I visited it before the last meeting, and I think one of the things that I said as a consequence was that the plan that's prepared there, maybe it's not on that sheet, but there are several sheets to it, and they have some photographs, and I think those photographs do a very good job in presenting the reality of that site. They show the tires, they show the extra building that's there that's going to be removed. They show the bicycles, you know, a lot of the stuff that's being cleaned up, and now the plan that they're presenting shows all of that removed. They are going to come in with 3 or 4 containers, whatever the plan shows, storage containers. And it shows some plantings up in that high area, and it doesn't show any of that debris or rubbish that was a complaint. And so that is what I understand the Department of Buildings will enforce.
Okay. I just have a few other questions, and they're very quick. On January 30th, 1918, you proposed a letter to Mr. DeSisto on a number of items related to the condition of the yard.
Yes.
Some of them required some legal opinions, some required some other opinions. I'm just trying to determine, of the 4-page letter that you comprised of the outstanding items, have they all been resolved prior to our meeting tonight to vote on the containers?
Yes, because they're all interrelated. A lot of the legal issues that we issued, and I could pull out the letter, a number of violations, I think it may have been 5 or 6 violations, and a number of those, or in fact all of them, the applicant appealed and went before the Zoning Board of Appeals. The Zoning Board of Appeals ruled in the Building Department's favor with regard to indicating that those violations had to be addressed. The applicant is currently in court with regard to those violations, and this process is related to the court process. They were instructed that they needed to remove some of the structures that are were not constructed with proper permits and approvals. So I believe there still may be a structure on site that will come down once they get this approval. So it's sort of an integrated system, but once they get this approval, then I believe that will wrap up issues in court, and then they'll move on to making the improvements. They can't make the improvements now because they don't have the approvals, so they're still in violation. But once they get the approvals, then they can legally put these storage containers on site, and that will then wrap things up in court. So we're working with them to make sure that all those violations are addressed. And I will have to say they've been very cooperative and responsive with regard to some of those violations, which there were some flammable and toxic chemicals on site. There was some debris that was not related to construction activities. You know, those have been removed. So they have been very cooperative. This process has taken longer than everybody, you know, would have anticipated, but I think they're getting, once they get these approvals, then that will allow them to actually finalize cleaning up the site.
Yeah, I want to address that as well. As the deputy town attorney. I'm the one that prosecutes the actual violations that are pending in court. And just so you know, and as the public who's watching knows, whenever there is a pending violation before the court and a defendant makes an application to appeal certain things to the zoning board, as was the case in this particular matter, as well as site plan approval, the court case typically, or by operation of law, actually tracks the appeals process and the approval process at zoning and planning. And so we have been adjourning the case. Once there's an official ruling on what the site is going to look at, we will be able to then wrap up or finalize the outstanding violations. Right now, the applicant, who's also a defendant in court, is in somewhat of a state of flux because the plan to address the violations has not been approved by the planning board yet. Hopefully, when this gets done. Also, I want to point out that the violations that were issued, even if the plan gets approved tonight, the violations were issued and the defendants were not in compliance at the time of the violations being issued. So there will be a penalty for the initial violations. However, in terms of the longer-term aspect of this project, to clean up the site, to finalize everything, a lot of it's dependent on what happens at this board.
Okay, I'm clearly of cleaning the site up. There's no question about it needs to be cleaned up. My only concern is this one applicant has got the town tied in a string between the planning board, the zoning board, and the courts for over a year, and nothing is being done. He has 2 containers on site now that don't belong there.
Well, again, if he receives approvals, then those containers are proposed
Currently,
to-
right now,
Yes, and if...
he
if-
doesn't.
He does not, but which is why he's in court.
Okay.
So, and as part of this proposal is to relocate and paint those 2 existing containers. So again, the zoning board process is done. The court process is relying upon the planning board process. The planning board process is likely to be completed this evening. So I think that pretty much is going to wrap things up, which then allows the applicant to move forward with regard to making the improvements.
It just seems like an awful long road to me.
Well, again, you know, one thing with regard to complaints, that no one in town can physically get onto a site and move something. So that is why they're in court. The fact that it has taken this long, the fact that certain things haven't, you know, that there's been certain delays are because of issues related to town issues, delays created by the applicant, you know, there may be additional penalties or fines. So that's basically our only recourse. We issue violations and summonses. The court issues fines. and so this is part of the process.
I don't understand why we're having problems getting on the site. Just take a look at what's there.
I've been on the site many times, and I do believe we did not have a coordinated site visit with members, but I have spoken to the chairperson and Mr. Nemisek, who are not here. But I know members were told to drive by the site. I think, in fact, when Mr. Pulaski went, the gate was even open. So I believe everyone's very familiar with the site. We did not have a coordinated site visit, but town staff, including myself, have been there numerous times.
Okay. The last and final item that I have is basically, I hate to give up the right-of-way for a fenced-in garbage item. That clearly is not their property. I don't know what's setting precedent here in terms of allowing this one individual. I know it's an apartment house. I know it's lots of activity there. But why are we giving away town property for him to install a fence with no approval?
Again, I spoke to the highway superintendent about that. The highway superintendent did give them approval to have that enclosure located in that location, and I think the reasoning, and the board can determine whether they, you know, choose to allow it or not based on the superintendent, highway superintendent saying that he approves it. Again, to make it very clear, trash is not allowed to be put out there except on pickup days. So the purpose of the trash enclosure is to conceal, from a multifamily, there's going to be more cans than there typically would be. So the purpose of the trash enclosure is to conceal those on pickup days. If that enclosure wasn't there, rather than seeing the enclosure, what you would see is 5 or 6 cans that are no longer protected by the enclosure. So by allowing the closure there, the town is no way saying that trash is allowed to be there except on usual pickup days like everyone else. The highway department appreciates it because it gives them a place to pick the trash up then and then put the cans back so that they don't end up sort of, randomly in the right-of-way. So that was the reasoning behind that.
My final comment will be, I don't know whether the superintendent of our DWP has the responsibility of allowing him to do that. That's my only question. Does he have it?
Yes, he does have the authority to do that, yes.
Yeah, I was going to also add, he typically does, and in situations involving the town right-of-way, Mr. DeLeo frequently discusses that with our office, but it is his call to make in terms of his crew's ability to get access to the garbage, to get access through there, and, based upon the nature of this site, we deferred to him based upon his judgment call with this particular site. As much screening as possible, I think also for the area involved. And again, it's really hard to distinguish between the fact that nothing in the approval to have that picket fence in the town right-of-way has anything to do with an approval to allow them to bring out garbage at times when they're not permitted by law. And we do enforce that. But when the cans are there and to stabilize them, because there are a number of families in that area, he's made that call and we typically will defer to it.
I agree with that premise, but if you took a look at the garbage in the last 2 weeks that was put out on a Friday night, and I think I sent you people photos of it.
It has continued to be an issue. I received photos. I know the highway department and the building department followed up immediately.
They jumped on it immediately. But the idea is that here's a tenant and an owner knows the rules of the game. And somehow on a Friday night, we have it look like an entire apartment at curbside. If you want, I have photos of them. That doesn't sound like a good neighbor to me. That's all. I'll rest my case.
Let me ask you a question. There's a sidewalk that goes in front of this dwelling, and then there's a sidewalk that goes along the long side of the dwelling, or parallel to Dunwoody. And there are cars that are parked perpendicular across that sidewalk and abut the building. I assume that's permitted parking.
It is. That was part of an approval many years ago, yes.
Okay. Because if it wasn't, you could take that 5 foot between the property line and the building to put a better garbage collection area that would be out of the right-of-way. But I do know that this is a difficult property because it's combining a construction area with a residential area, and I look at this application from that perspective, that there is a level of difficulty. The only thing I would possibly recommend is I think that wood picket fence might look better as a fence of chain link that matches the front gate.
Rather than just the painted gray picket.
Yeah.
For consistency, sure.
It stands out. It just, it's going to stand out as a chain link,
Yeah.
but there would be some looking at it from an aesthetic standpoint,
Yeah,
there would be some continuity there.
I'd agree 100% is that basically if it could be matched in terms of the fencing that they're going to put up, if the hidden fence behind where the garbage is going to be stored was the same quality and the same material, rather than having a gray-white.
Well, I think what and again, this is up to the board, the applicant is proposing to paint the stockade fence enclosure to match the chain link fence and the slats. I personally don't think that a chain link fence with gray slats going through it is going to be more attractive than what's there. But that's,
Well, I think the stability of it is what,
stability may be a different thing,
yeah. I mean, because the wood pickets will probably look nicer, but I don't think it'll last very long if there's the use that this is gonna go through. I think I agree with Mr. Pulaski on this one with it all being matching and, you know, something that's substantial that will be there for many years in one piece.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Anyone else from the public needing to address us on this matter? Okay. With that said, I make a motion to close the public hearing on application 19-19, 157 Montgomery Avenue. Second? Any second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'm not used to this, so.
I know.
Usually that's your job.
Phil,
I usually
jump
do
all
the
over
second.
each other.
We're on it now.
Mark and I let you and Phil have that little deal.
usually do the
It seems
second,
to please you
okay.
guys.
All right, okay, so,
You have-
so that meeting is closed.
Mr.
Now,
Chairman?
there was one other,
Mr. Chairman,
oh,
you have to-
No, yeah,
No.
just that, I think, yeah, the picket fence gives it a little more of a residential feel somewhat to it, and there is residential neighborhood adjoining this project, site, so it would probably have more of that residential feel than a commercial gate feel. And it, you know, you could look at the sturdiness of that existing fence, that it's solid and whatnot, but
You could
That's the
make a
only thing I
condition
feel.
that the picket fence be maintained
Maintained, there
to
you
such
go.
as, in
That's
a set.
exactly where I was gonna
And
go
again,
with it.
I'm not wanting to disagree
Yeah.
with the board, but I do disagree with the architect. I think the picket fence within the right-of-way or the stockade
Will look
has more
much
of a
better. Yeah,
residential
I agree.
feel. But you
Okay.
could
can
make a
write it
condition
into
that
it
it
that,
has to, that it has to be, the paint has to be maintained without peeling paint and structurally sound.
okay. There had been an item, I do not believe we discussed at the last meeting. Let's just clear that we're okay on it, is there was discussion about how to treat the front yard.
Yeah.
And that front yard was still going to have some bicycles out in front of it, the front porch, rather. Some chairs, a barbecue, and so there was some masking or shrubs. And what I believe is being proposed is some abrevieties and some low shrubs, is that it?
No, I think you're looking at an older plan. There's some andromedas and some azaleas.
Okay,
Initially, the applicant proposed some arborvitae, which would basically just
Okay.
wall people in on the
Right.
front porch.
okay, so these are satisfactory with
Yes.
with the planning board, planning department, okay. All right, I guess we're ready to wrap this up. I see a list of, most of this stuff is bubbled. At the last meeting, we had talked about painting the storage containers, but I see that it is marked that the containers are going to be painted, and they're going to be painted in hunter green. So as far as I'm concerned, that item is done. On this plan, I see the statement made that you're going to replace the gates. I don't see a statement about the posts. And the posts are critical because they're bent a little bit.
there'll be, yeah, completely new posts and new, you know, foundation for the posts, and we'll do the,
Okay.
you know, construction detail.
And the egress is still being reviewed by the fire department. And that should be it.
Do you want me to
So,
go over the conditions of
Okay,
approval, or,
go ahead.
okay? It's going to be a little redundant, but, so prior to the issuance of a CC, the applicant shall replace the existing gate, all existing fencing and fence posts on Dunwoody Street. The fence and gate shall be replaced within a solid 8-foot, as proposed, the chain link fence with the gray slats, 8-foot-high fence and gate. And then I did just want to note that actually in certain locations, the fence is going to be shorter because it's on top of a retaining wall, so that there'll be, the height will be determined so that the tops of the gate and the fence match. The existing trash enclosures on site, there's one right within the property and within the town right-of-way shall be painted to match the fence. Any plant materials must be installed in accordance with the planting plan, and prior to the issuance of a CC, the landscape architect shall submit a signed and sealed letter certifying that the installed plan is consistent with the approved plan. The fire department shall confirm that site egress conforms to all requirements of the fire code. Then there's some issues with regard to ongoing property maintenance. The storage containers must be maintained in a clean condition, free of rust and peeling paint. No materials of any kind can be placed on top of the storage containers. We've already discussed the fact that trash cannot be taken out. It can only be placed within the right-of-way the evening preceding the scheduled pickup day. Vehicles cannot idle on-site or within the right-of-way for more than 5 minutes, and the trash enclosure within the right-of-way must be maintained in a structurally sound condition and with no peeling paint.
Okay, with those said conditions, I make a motion on application 19-19, 157 Montgomery Avenue for approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And I hope this speeds up straightening the site out so that the area of North Eastchester has a better looking property. Okay, the next application is 19-02, 249 Main Street. This application has come before us several times, one preliminary, another time in which we gave some review comments. Now you're coming back with addressing those review comments and looking to be forwarded to the zoning board.
That's correct.
So if you could introduce yourself and present your project.
Very good. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, David Smith, principal with Planning and Development Advisors, working with the applicant who is here tonight, Angela Agavino, representing Eastchester Manor Developers, LLC. The property is located at 249 Main Street in Eastchester. It's known locally as Section 69, Block 5, Lot 6 and 6B. The project site is approximately 0.35 acres. There's an existing two-family home with a garage. The project is located in the RB Retail Business District. Joining me tonight, just to introduce, Michael Stein from Hudson Engineering, our project engineer. Carlito Holt from Provident Design Engineer, he's our traffic consultant. And Antonio Freda from Freda Design, he's the architect. And I'm going to have Mr. Freda come up in a couple of minutes to walk through the layout for the proposed project. So just by way of background on the project site is located in a mixed-use area. It's adjacent to the Eastchester Fire Department and EMT headquarters. There are a number of multifamily buildings in the neighborhood. There are single-family homes that have been converted to multiple units and commercial projects. So the project site is located within within walking distance from many of the goods and services that future residents and households would need. The proposed project includes 15 multifamily units. They're market rate rental. They'd be supported by 26 parking spaces, 12 indoor, and then 14 surface spaces. The proposed four-story building would have essentially parking and some support services on the first floor, and the upper 3 floors would be residential. The building program includes 9 one-bedroom units and then 6 two-bedroom units. As part of our October 8th submission provided to your board, we've included updated plans from the project engineer. We've had the project architect respond in writing to additional comments from the village engineer, from the town engineer. We've provided extensive responses to comments from the town consultants, from the Eastchester Fire Department, from Westchester County Planning, and in addition, we have provided renderings, which Mr. Freda will present to you. Those are also included in our package. So all of that is in addition to our initial package, submission package, which included the environmental assessment form, the plans, the engineering and stormwater plans, the traffic report, a technical memo on school-age children, and then correspondence from the State Historic Preservation Office. So, Mr. Chairman, as you had referenced our ask tonight, if you're so inclined, this project needs 3 variances from the zoning code. We have a notice of denial from the building department. The 3 variances relate to, 1, the provision of a landscaping area along the perimeter of the property. We have approximately 240 linear feet landscaped out of approximately 370 feet of the perimeter. The second variance request is for, there's essentially because of the site design and the constraints, there's no room for the placement of snow, and so the applicant has indicated that as part of management of the site, they will haul that off-site, but we do need to have a variance from that provision. And lastly, there is the building, the proposed building exceeds the building coverage, and we've gotten a clarification from the building department that it's approximately 22.9% over the requirement in the zoning code. It's my understanding in the with discussions from your planning director that in order for the applicant to move forward to the zoning board, this board needs to issue a negative declaration under the State Environmental Quality Review Act that the project would not have a significant impact on the environment. So our ask would be that given all of the information that we have provided to you and the responses, that you would consider that as part of the request to move this application to the next step, which would be to the Zoning Board of Appeals. And with that, I've provided a fairly brief review of the submission package, what we would like to accomplish as part of this meeting. I would ask Mr. Freda to come up and he could provide you with a brief background and review of the site plan and the layout of the building.
Thank you.
I'm Tony Freda, the architect. Basically, the site, Main Street, we have entrances on each exit and entrance on one side and an exit on the other side. So it's a 4-story, 15-family building. All right. Have parking in the rear and also parking underneath the building. Yeah. Well, 12 parking spaces are located outside the building, and 14 spaces are located within the building underneath, and they're open to the outside like this.
So for people viewing this, Main Street is on the left, and
Main Street
the building
over
is
there.
positioned perpendicular to Main Street.
Yes.
Usually you're looking straight at the front of the building, whereas here you're turned 90 degrees.
Yeah. So this is the first floor level. Have a lobby coming in, small meeting room on the left as you come in, and hallway going to the back where we have access to the parking in the rear and have access to the parking on the side for the handicap directly into the main public hallway. An elevator and 2 stairs. That's basically the first floor. The elevations of these parking areas may change accordingly as we go around the property. If it's a higher elevation here, a little bit lower, and then even maybe lower at this point. And it'll go according to the elevations of the site. And on the upper levels, this is from the second floor to the fourth floor. It's a typical floor plan where you have the two-bedroom units here and the one-bedroom units on this side. So you'll have 6 of these, 2 bedrooms, and 9 one-bedroom units. They're all handicap accessible. They're basically 2 bedrooms will have 2 bathrooms, walk-in closets, etc. We'll have, most of them will have balconies, except for the unit in the rear. And that's basically it. There's nothing else on the roof to show except that it's a roof. This is the cellar floor plan. On the cellar floor plan, we'll have a common area gym, storage units, compartments for the tenants, general storage for the building, and all the meter rooms, gas, electric, and water, and a trash compactor room, which where we'll store the trash in. Other than that, that's all there is. So okay.
So now we're looking at it
This
standing
is
on Main
on
Street.
Main Street, and we're looking at
And
angled
on one of the
elevation.
sides, yes.
this is the entrance for the parking, driveways. And see the balconies, front elevation and side elevations. They compose of briquettes and bricks and a hardy board siding and a Isaac type trim all the way around. Metal railings. And that's basically it. This is the back of the building. The back has a cantilevered, the 3 stories in the back are cantilevered in order to allow for the driveway and access to the parking in the rear, so it sweeps around. And also to allow for parking underneath the building at this point. So this is Main Street in the front, and this is the back of the building.
Good. Okay, for anybody who's not familiar with this building or the location or the site, it's in, I call it the older part of Eastchester, by the fire station, just south of that rather south of the fire station. That's Waverly School area. And that Main Street follows all the way down, and people living there that are working in the city would probably be going for the Tuckahoe train station.
Correct.
And so that's one of the things that's making this project particularly viable. And right now, Angelo, that property was, what was it? What's the history of that property that's there now?
The property changed hands a few times before we acquired the property.
Okay.
Right now, what is there now, there's a multifamily dwelling there. There's also, I guess, a giant garage in the back with metal gates on it.
But it's basically a big open lot, and
Yeah.
it was used for construction vehicles or something?
Yeah, it was, they stored material there.
Right.
All kinds of construction debris, sand, stone. There was different dividers back there. It was.
And so this is going to bring this project would bring that area up to what all the adjoining buildings are, residential or commercial, or instead of a contractor's yard.
This project is going to bring this, I believe, this area, bring it to the next level, and the property now is basically run down. There's a lot, there was a lot of stuff going on there. We want to build this beautiful building here and make the town a better place.
I just wanted to give that information out to the public. I'm not trying to endorse your project, but I think there is value for the public to be aware of where this property is. Lots of times we talk about houses all over Eastchester, and sometimes you don't even know what neighborhood it's in. All right, so we got engineering reports, and we have, so we hear from the engineers
Well,
next?
I think the applicant is still going to continue with their presentation,
Yes.
so,
Okay.
correct?
Yes, we're going to hear from your engineers. Is that what's next on your agenda?
There was a review memo that we received a little bit earlier this week with some additional comments from, or continued comments from, the town engineer. And we would just note that a number of those comments are more site plan related. We did respond to a number of those from the architect. We responded to them in writing with the understanding that we would provide certain things like a lighting plan, criteria like the dimensions of light poles as part of final site plan approval. Unless, Michael, you have any further responses, I think we believe that we're in a position, or the town would be in a position to move the project forward, understanding that we would need to come back to your board for final site plan approval once we've had an opportunity to confer with the zoning board of appeals.
I understand this is a process, and it's a project of this nature is going to go through many meetings, and we want to move the process along. But we are here, and if there are engineers that are available, they can present the information that they put together, and we have, you did the,
Oh. Yeah, okay.
Thank you. Good evening, Michael Stein with Hudson Engineering. We're the engineers of record for the project. So subsequent to the last meeting, we had worked on addressing the comment letter we had received from Keller Sessions' office. We had made modifications to the stormwater system, so it is now sized to fully infiltrate the 100-year storm event. So all the new impervious surfaces on the site are basically being directed to that system. We had received comments. I'm not sure if it was yesterday or Tuesday. We're going to work with the Keller Sessions office to address those. There's nothing that's blaring or large in scale, but it's basically all items that are easily addressable.
okay. There was some question, I think Kelly Sessions made about the structure over these storm.
Over the storm tanks, yes. The way we had designed it is anticipating that the detail he was referencing is for H20 loading, which is very heavy equipment, heavy trucks or vehicles. We don't have that access that would be coming through the site. However, we're going to be addressing that it's basically a 3-inch difference. So there's just going to be some additional grading that we'll be doing just to add the additional 3 inches above it.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do we have a traffic engineer available?
Good evening. Carlito Holt, Managing Partner with Provident Design Engineering. So we prepared a May 6, 2019 technical memorandum about the traffic and parking implications associated with the project. We received comments on that from your engineering consultant, Mazer, and we responded to those comments in a September 23rd memo. And I believe Mazer issued a subsequent September 27th memo, which generally concurred with all of the responses. There was one item with respect to site distance that they left to the discretion of the board as to whether there would want to be elimination of one on-street parking space to allow for added site distance. We meet the minimum stopping site distance per AASHTO requirements. And in my opinion, that would be adequate for the amount of traffic that would be generated from this project, which is very minimal. Only approximately 9 peak hour trips during any peak hour.
Okay, for the public's benefit, and correct me if I'm wrong, what you're talking about with site distance is when you go to exit, where you have the exit arrow, You have to look both ways to make sure that you can see traffic coming. And so your sight distance could be impeded with cars parked along Main Street, right?
Correct.
That's the
So,
issue?
so you have your exit driveway at the southerly end of the site, so you need to be looking left and right, up and
Right.
down Main Street. There is an on-street parking space here, which can impede sight lines to gain additional sight distance, but even with keeping that on-street parking space, you meet the minimum stopping sight distance.
But wasn't there a problem to the left?
Looking to the left, there is no problem.
No?
Yeah, the only issue was potentially the vertical curve in the road as you come up to where the traffic light is, but that sight distance is met. We verified that in the field.
Okay. And deliveries, how are deliveries going to be handled in this traffic pattern?
Deliveries would be handled with a small box truck type vehicle, and we ran turning template analysis to show that the delivery vehicle can maneuver all the way around the site. We actually laid that out in traffic simulation software that demonstrated that that type of delivery vehicle could circulate the site.
So somebody moving in or getting a delivery from Amazon packages or UPS, they would come with the appropriate vehicle that would be able to go around that site, or that vehicle would be parking on Main Street?
A typical delivery type vehicle that would be coordinated with the project site would be a single unit 30-foot truck that could maneuver around the site.
Okay. Okay. There's as a,
Just let them know this was included as part of the package.
I'm sorry, that exhibit that demonstrates that turning template was figure 5 in our response memo that showed the single unit 30-foot truck circulating the site.
okay. I'm aware of your memos. Your backup, I don't know if this is your category, but I see on the traffic plan that I was given that there is a, and it's not that plan that we're looking at, because there's a dimension of 24 feet as your maneuvering aisle. And I was just wondering if that's per code, or if it has to be 25 feet, or if that's a miss.
It has to be 25 feet, and it's shown on the site plan as 25 feet. I don't know if there was a dimension that was incorrect on one of the traffic plans.
It was this plan here, if anybody wants to see it.
So, we have, the interior parking spaces are 10 feet wide. So that permits you to have a 20-foot maneuvering space behind it. These spaces here are 9 foot wide, and so we need 25-foot maneuvering space at this point. If you look on this,
But when you say that they're 10 foot wide, how are you measuring that? Because you have a brick return or a facade return that seems to shorten that space up a bit.
well, it's opened up in order to provide those spaces. So the code allows for a 24-foot maneuvering space when you have a 10-foot wide parking space.
Yes, but if the
That's what the
window
code,
that you're going through is 9 foot,
but that's what the code says. It says if the parking spaces are either 10 feet wide or they're bounded rather by walls or columns, or they're inside, they must be 10 feet wide in order to have they must have 4-foot, they may have 24-foot maneuvering space as long as they're 10 foot wide.
Yes, so what the zoning law specifically says is backup and maneuvering aisles between rows of parking spaces shall be at least 25 feet wide, which is what we're accustomed to seeing, except if the parking angle is between 80 degrees and 90 degrees and parking spaces are at least 10 feet wide, aisle shall be at least 24 feet wide. So that's why this is 24 feet wide in this case.
But on this side, we have 9-foot spaces, 9-foot wide parking spaces, and 90 degrees, and we have 25-foot.
No, I understand that, but you have, for instance, you have 2 parking spaces next to each other now. This plan doesn't show it, but you have a wall return and a wall return. So this space here on entry is encroached on. It's only 10 feet when you get inside. I think, if I interpret the plans correctly, but I don't see dimensions on all of them, so
Well, they're
I take
called
my
out.
scale ruler out and, you know,
Yeah, they're called out,
they
though.
always tell you don't scale anything.
Exactly.
I think, we'll have Jay look at that again.
Okay.
I think he was pretty thorough, but he'll look at it again. Yeah, but we'll look at it
But
again, just to double check.
If anybody's been familiar with me on this board, I've always been a stickler over access in and out of parking spaces, because it's often difficult, and I don't like to see people damage their car or damage another vehicle. So,
Yeah, well,
that's why I'm harping on this.
All right, but we did it per code.
Okay. Do we have engineers here to
Yes, we have
respond to?
we have Joe Tremelli, our
okay.
civil engineer, and Phil Greeley, our
So
traffic
before we
engineer.
call them up, are you done with your, okay, so Joe, would you address the comments made?
Thanks. Good evening, Joe Tremelli from Keller Sessions. So we have a memo, went out earlier this week. I don't know if you've had a chance to read through it at all. A lot of it is similar to the prior memo that we did back in July. As the applicant said, they're planning on getting, or they've acknowledged our comments and plan to get to them and address them. So I think a lot of this is repetitive from our last memo. I don't know if maybe we could just touch on some of the bigger items. I don't think we need to go through every comment in here. There's some technical stuff that I'm sure the applicant will have no issue resolving. Some of the bigger items, the biggest one I think for us is the getting an understanding, and certainly for the board to understand the grading and the levels of terrain that are being modified for this project. So in general, right now, the site sits higher than the neighboring properties on the sides and the rear. And when all is said and done here, this property will actually sit lower than most or a good part of the surrounding properties. And in order to provide the grades that are there today, there's retaining walls on the neighboring properties. It looks as though they're on the adjacent properties. So I don't know that the owner has any control over those walls. So I think some additional sections might benefit the board to get an understanding of kind of a before and after picture of what's going to happen and what may need to be done to these walls, whether they get reconstructed or if they disappear entirely. But I don't know that the plan has enough information for you to really ascertain that at this point.
Right.
We had previously mentioned, and they brought it up earlier from SHPO, they had a comment regarding the protection of the firehouse. While it's not historic, it is eligible for listing, and they didn't have an objection to the project at all. Their only recommendation was that some monitoring or construction measures be put in place to protect the integrity of that structure during construction. So we would look for that at some point. With regard to variances, we did note in here, in looking at the plan, and we spoke with the building department, the existing driveway entry, the proposed entrance, they're looking to utilize the existing curb cut. I think the existing curb cut doesn't meet code. I think it's steeper than what's permitted, so it's just something to keep in mind. If it's not something they can amend to meet code, it may be another variance that would be required. So we'd want to confirm that before they go to the zoning board. As was mentioned, the stormwater mitigation plan, we did witness the soil testing out there, adequate soils for infiltration. They were deep. The system as designed, I think, is okay. We do have a question on the total drainage area tributary to it. I think there might be some coordination that needs to happen. It looks like there's a small amount of area that wasn't attributed to the system, so it may need to get slightly larger, but there is ample room. I don't see that becoming an issue. We did ask for a sewer design report and a capacity analysis just to ensure that we're not going to have any negative impact on the existing sewer system. And as was mentioned in the letter from the county, typically on projects like this, there is an opportunity for reduction of inflow and infiltration to offset the increased sewer load from a project like this. So we had recommended discussions with the highway department, and he may know of problem areas in that sewer shed, either leaking pipes or manholes or bad connections, something that maybe that could be repaired to remove that inflow of infiltration and stormwater, groundwater, and basically provide that capacity for the increase resulting from the project. Then some of the other, I think maybe the two, probably last of the larger comments, and was already mentioned, a site lighting plan, photometric plan, I think you'd want to see, just to make sure that there is no light trespass to the adjoining properties. And then we had a staff level meeting with emergency services and various departments, and they did note that they had concerns for adequate aerial access to the building, because in the event of a fire, they would be setting up in the street. And currently there's overhead wires that span across the front of that property. They had, I think, required that they be buried so that they do have aerial access in the event of a fire.
Okay.
I don't know if you have any
That's
questions
it?
on it, but that's all.
I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, just,
Sounded
those
like
are those are the bigger items. If you had any
Yes.
questions.
No, I understand. What I'd like to do is I'd like you to stand aside and if the applicant could just give us an update on where they are on these items. I understand that this may not be concluded at this point, but just where this is going along the path of being dealt with.
One of the things that we've actually been in discussions is just adjustments to the site itself. I think that was the first issue that Joe had brought up, is about the elevation, that we're actually going to be lower than the surrounding properties. So part of what we're looking at doing is actually elevating, and I had mentioned that before, we're going to be doing some regrading along the rear and along the sides, trying to eliminate that condition where we are more sunken in.
Okay, but staying with Joe's comment, when I read Joe's comment and I looked at the plan, it seemed that the retaining walls sometimes were very clearly on another side, on another property, and then sometimes they were clear on yours, and then they were in the middle.
Right.
How does the applicant intend to address this? Are there retaining walls that need to be constructed, or, as you say, just they put a berm there?
As we're higher currently than the majority of the neighboring properties, so with what was originally being proposed was we were cutting it down, and the architect is now working at each of the garages specifically being able to be at different elevations. So with that being able to be done, we can change the elevations along the rear of the property and eliminate some of the need for walls where they may either be existing or proposed, but we're working to address that specifically.
Where there's a neighboring wall, where that wall, let's say, is on your property for a while, and then it seems to go onto the other property based on the survey line, you'll take care of that whole length of wall if it has to be trimmed down?
If need be, but we'd need the property owner's permission.
Right, that's obvious, yes. Okay, and some of the other items? It was protection of FH, firehouse, the firehouse.
Oh, actually, just let me add in, just as far as the stormwater also,
Okay.
we did take a look at the areas that was, Joe had mentioned about whether they were included or weren't included. We're looking at taking in all the new impervious surfaces. There's going to be other surfaces that would not be able to be tributary to the system. However, they're landscape areas. There are the walkways in front of the building. What we're anticipating doing is doing a pre-analysis and a post-analysis showing that even if we're considering the site as completely undeveloped in the existing condition, we're still going to result in a substantial decrease in runoff coming from the site. So even though we don't necessarily have those areas accounted for in the stormwater management system, however, there are landscape areas, or areas that we couldn't put into the stormwater system, but since we're taking in so much of the area of the site, probably 85 or 90% of the site into our system, it results in an overall decrease in runoff.
Okay, so you address this in a form of a document that gets
Yes.
submitted to the county?
To the town.
So most
It's
of,
the town or it's the county?
well, all of the comments that Joe raised, they're going to have to be required to come back and address if and when they
I
come back
understand
for
that.
site plan approval. The county health department reviews things related to sanitary sewer, right?
The
So-
county health department wouldn't necessarily even be involved. It would be county DPW that would be
Oh,
reviewing
I
it
meant-
because it's their road. So they're going to, at the same time, they're going to be looking for their details for sidewalk, curbing, and other items along that lines. They're going to be looking at potential impacts from stormwater coming from the site out into the road. So that, as well as, however, once Joe finishes, or College Sessions finishes their review, the county really should be very minimal, if anything, comments.
Okay. The existing curb cut item?
Based upon the elevations, I believe it may be a variance that would be required because at that area, I don't believe we're able to get down to the slope because the street slope's coming down and that's at the lower point. So in order to actually access, it's within our driveway, it's not coming across the sidewalk, but it's the access coming down from the driveway on that side, on the exit side of the building, which I think we're at 5% right now.
Okay. But if you're going to be going to the zoning board, you'd want to clear all these items
Yes.
up. So what would be the process for them to address this?
They would have to provide a grading plan or information to us with regard to what they're proposing. If they can't make it, then they would need to seek a variance. If they can demonstrate that they can meet the zoning law, then they would not need to. So before
Yes,
they
so we
proceed to the
developed
zoning board, they would have to confirm with us that a variance is not required for that driveway.
Or they would end up going back to the zoning board a second time? Okay.
Right, we are investigating regrading the property. I'm not sure how it may impact that area, but as we're moving along to do the regrading, we're going to find out what we can do and what adjustments we can possibly make.
Okay. The site lighting plan, that's in development?
Site lighting plan?
Again,
Yes.
we aren't here to wrap things up.
Right.
This is just a progress meeting, so I'm just
Yep.
asking that this stuff is being dealt with.
Yeah, so with respect, I'll try and respond to a number of the different comments that were raised. With
Okay.
respect to the site lighting plan, in the architect's October 8th letter submitted as part of the package, we've indicated that the lighting plan would be provided, again, as part of the final site plan, and will delimit the extent of any light trespass. And obviously, if there are regulations with respect to the lighting design and the light cutoff needs to be at a certain foot candle level at the property line, that's what we need to adhere to as part of the
All
site plan
right,
approval.
so you're going to be coming back with the plan?
Yes.
And the emergency services, aerial access needed, burying lines?
Our understanding is that's a requirement, and we had the discussion with the town staff, including the fire department. And for this particular building, because it's a 4-story building, the fire department needs to have that aerial access. So in order for that to happen, the fire department has indicated that the lines need to be buried along that section of the frontage. So that would need to be a requirement from the fire department.
So that's your plan at the moment? Okay.
Correct.
Somewhere in the write-ups, I also saw a comment about standpipe. The fire department recommending a standpipe.
Right, and that's currently a recommendation, that it's not a requirement in the code. So at this point, the applicant isn't entertaining inclusion as part of the site plan.
I wish you would. In any event, thank you. Do we have the traffic engineer here from Mazer?
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, could I just
Okay,
quickly
go
go?
ahead.
Yeah, there was a comment about the access out to
Site distance?
yeah, well, the meeting particular standards, and because this is a county road, we have to meet all of their standards. We'll meet all of the applicable county, state, and AASHTO standards for that access. And then lastly, there was a question about the construction plan and its relationship to the neighboring fire department. And as part of the meeting that we had with the town staff and consultants, we had indicated, and this, again, this is part of the response prepared by Frida Design, included with the package, that we recognize that the continual evolution of the plan, but the construction phasing plan and a maintenance and protection of traffic plan would be provided as part of the eventual site plan approval. They would be conditions as part of the eventual site plan approval. So I apologize for interrupting, but I know you
fine.
want to hear from your consultant.
Thank you.
Good evening, Philip Greeley, Mazer Consulting. We prepared a memo review of the initial traffic report that was presented by the applicant and the site plans. There were about a dozen or so comments we had in our August report. Many of those you've already discussed relative to access, sight lines. One of the bigger items was the original plan had the driveway widths at 10 feet. They've revised those to 12 feet, 12-foot entry and a 12-foot exit. In terms of input from emergency services, that was requested. We talked about the snow storage, which was a concern that we had, so that would be a condition of the approval for removal of snow. The applicant provided the turning tracks we asked for, showing getting in and out of the parking spaces and the delivery vehicles. Comment about garbage pickup. It's our understanding that the garbage will be picked up curbside is the proposal. In terms of the site distances, the applicant indicated and presented a plan showing that they meet the required stopping site distance. AASHTO also has what's called an intersection site distance, which is a little greater. The ultimate call is from the county. They have to get a permit from the Westchester County DPW for the modifications to the driveway. If the board and or the county wanted to increase the site distances, it would require removal of at least one parking space. In front of the site today, the designated parking there is for fire vehicles, emergency vehicles only. So that space is there. To the south of the site, there are a couple of metered parking spaces, and that's what would have to be dealt with. But at some point, they're going to have to get a permit from Westchester County because Main Street there is a county road. In terms of the other items they addressed, we had comments about the traffic generation. They did an analysis of the driveway showing that it would function properly. And a lot of the other points you've already discussed relative to deliveries. And so the applicant responded to our initial comments, and we reviewed those in our September 27th memorandum, and we basically just outlined where we ended up on all of those items. So right. I think we're satisfied in terms of their responses, and they will have to get the permit from the county, and any further input from emergency services would be ongoing.
Okay, so let me just go back over this. So the driveway width changed from 10 feet to 12 feet? That
Correct.
Requires county approval?
No, the original plan had a 10-foot
Yes.
drive aisle, and we felt that was too narrow.
Right.
So they increased it to 12 feet.
Okay.
And they demonstrated that the vehicles turning in and exiting can maneuver properly with that width. They will have to get a permit from the county for the reconstruction of the entrance, because there are going to have to be ADA compliant, treatments on the sidewalk, repairs of the sidewalk, and the grade of the driveway also.
Okay, but the site distance is something that the county has to weigh in on and
Correct.
decide whether they are going to be the ultimate decider in this.
Yes.
Okay. And emergency services, we're still waiting for a response?
Well, there was a meeting held with emergency services to discuss circulation, access, and I think Joe Tremelli mentioned, the main comments. So I think they were pretty much satisfied with the increase of the width of the driveway was a concern early on. So I think.
And how about parking? Was there a study done on parking?
So in terms of the site plan, they show the parking spaces required for the number of units. The survey that we asked them to perform was demonstrating vehicles turning in and out of the spaces. I think the chairman had a comment before about the concern. So they demonstrated how vehicles would turn in and out of each of the spaces, and it shows that they would function fine.
There was no study as far as any impact on the community outside of the
External
business?
parking, no.
Okay. Okay, I don't know if there are any items that have to be addressed on this by the applicant before we, I think you have
Yeah, I
answers to
think
everything.
they've answered all of our questions, so it's really,
Do we have any
getting
questions
to
from the board?
Just those fire department spaces, they're going to remain?
Yes, I think the proposal is that they would be maintained. Whether they get shifted or there's some striping near them, it may be more defined, but that's kind of a final plan item.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
If there's anything that the applicant needs to address on it, please do. I don't think that there is. I believe we have an open public hearing.
Yes.
Okay, so if there's anybody from the public wishing to speak, please come up, identify yourself, and tell us your concern.
Yeah.
And as he's going to the microphone, I just want to say on the record that you did receive emails from 3 residents. One was included in your original package, and 2 were included in the package you received today.
Yes.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me? It's going through. Paul Puccini, 78 Tuckahoe Avenue. I'm completely opposed to this, 100%. We don't need a 15-family apartment building on the south side of Eastchester. Traffic is a nightmare. Try to go north on 22 from 2 o'clock till 3:30. You'll sit at Mill Road for 2 traffic cycle lights, easy. As far as deliveries going in and out of the site, that's never going to happen. They're going to do what they do now. They park on 22 with a FedEx or UPS truck. They're going to block Main Street. Never going to get addressed, 100%. And as far as the chairman saying that people live there are going to take the train to Tuckahoe, you don't know that. And as far as you saying it's an eyesore or whatever, and you're so happy about it, why are you so happy about it? If there's a problem with the existing building, give someone a summons, let them go clean it up.
Excuse me for a second. I wasn't, I said that I'm not trying to endorse a project.
Could have fooled me. You're like a 16-year-old boy looking at a 16-year-old girl.
Excuse me, I'm speaking.
I'm allowed to speak also. It's my time right now, isn't it?
I'm speaking.
Is it my time now or no?
You made a statement, I want to correct it.
Okay, and my statement stands. We can show the video if you want, because I remember it was pretty clear. You were giddy.
And I clarified it, that I was not saying that it's an endorsement.
Sure. Very convincing.
I've been on this board for a while. I've watched other boards. I've watched this board, and sometimes the community, I try to pull the community in to where this project is and what is going on. And that is all that was. It was not an endorsement of the project.
Okay,
I
well, my
know
opinion
that-
of it-
I know that there are concerns as. such
My
as
opinion
are
of it, you were
talking
giddy
about,
over it.
That I expect that we will hear, that are contrary to anybody saying that the project is an endorsement.
Now, 15 family, what is that going to do to the school district? If they have 2 kids in each house, that's 30 kids. That's another classroom. Our taxes are through the roof now. You ever see so many houses for sale in Eastchester? Why are they for sale? People can't stand the taxes anymore. Okay, this is a complete nightmare. Traffic-wise, school-wise, everything. And they're going to put the snow on site? Please, give me a break on that. Look at the guy when they plow out Value Drugs or the across the street. They put the snow right onto the street. I have to call all the time because they block up the top of 22 and Tuckahoe Avenue. I mean, it's got to end. We just can't keep jamming people and jamming people. This is coming to Central Avenue, Yonkers now. That's what it looks like. I'm fourth generation in this town. And it's a night. We used to have the blue law. I mean, it's terrible what's happened to this town. Does anybody wake up and realize it all is about getting money, money, money? Does anybody here, part of the project, do you live south of Mill Road? Do you have to travel north on 22? Try to go on a Saturday. I mean, come on. You can't allow this to happen. And then I heard there's also going to be another project on the top of Tuckahoe Avenue where they're going to knock all those houses down, put houses. I mean, when does it end? I plan on, and this is the first I'm hearing of this project, I plan on being in every single meeting all the way through if this gets approved. Thank you.
Okay, does the applicant choose to respond?
Mr. Chairman, you understand that we've prepared traffic analysis based on the direction from your own town consultants. There was a request from the planning director for the analysis as part of this project to include impacts to the school district from school generation. Based on the industry standards that we've used, we project that 2 school-age children would be coming from this particular project. Again, it's 1 and 2 bedroom units. We were asked to confer with consultant to Frank Fish, who confirmed that a project just down the road, Quarry Place, a much larger development, similar 1 and 2 bedroom units, generates approximately the same number of children that we're projecting as part of our project. So we think that we're consistent with the standards that have been used and have been found to be realistic once a project has been built and occupied.
And how many 1-bedrooms and how many 2-bedrooms does this project have out of 15 units?
15 units, 9 1-bedroom and 6 2-bedrooms. So the majority of them are 1-bedroom
And the
units.
snow, how's the snow being dealt with?
Again, the applicant's going to be the manager of the property, and they are going to they'll pick up the snow and they'll remove it. And that's part of the operations of the project site.
Okay. Okay. I'm sure we're going to hear further comments like this, but is there anyone else that wants? Okay. This is one rebuttal, and we're going to another meeting.
I got it. Take it easy. I'm sorry, sir. Could you just tell me how many people you were school-age children?
Excuse me. You're addressing
How many
the board.
school-age children were anticipated to live there? Then I didn't understand what the gentleman was saying.
Okay, sir. Would you respond to that? You need to go up to the microphone.
Hi.
It's anticipated based, and again, the school report was included as part of our initial submission to the board. I believe it was dated May, and in that report was estimated it was slightly less than 2, but we rounded up, so we're anticipating 2 school-age children, public school-age children.
Okay. All right.
So again, 15-family building, 2 kids.
Only 6 of the units are 2 bedrooms.
I'm saying it's 15 family though. So is that realistic? Does everybody really believe 2 kids and 15 families? Have a good night.
Thank you.
I just want to address that last remark that was made. I think it was an improper comment to make. The majority of the units are 1-bedroom units. There are formulas, and in the event that there are children that are going to be moving into the building that are going to be attending the public school system, the building owner gets taxed so that the school system can meet the needs of all of the children. There are formulas that are established for a reason. 9 of the units are 1-bedroom apartments.
I had a 1-bedroom when I got married.
You may want to disagree with that, But the bottom line is that there are formulas and there are reports that have been submitted to the board. And you are welcome to come to the building department and actually look at those reports so you
Appreciate
have
that.
an educated opinion instead of just coming here and spewing venom.
I'm not spewing venom, and you're insulting me right now, saying that an
No,
uneducated...
I'm not, but your opinion is not based on fact, and we provide this information.
Okay.
Instead of coming and disrupting this meeting and heckling and talking out of turn and interrupting the chairperson, you are more than welcome to come to the building department and look at the actual data.
Okay, I'm not going to go back and forth to you, but opinions and polls and things like that, if you look at the 2016 election, they had Hillary Clinton winning 96% to 4.
Okay. Anyone else at this time wanting to address the board on this issue? Okay. With that said, we're going to leave this open. As a part of our process and business, we have a secret that we have to address.
Yes, you have two different things that you need to do. There are other involved agencies, which means there's other boards that have authority to issue approvals or permits related to the process. So we referred the application to those agencies to see if they had any objection to you serving as the lead agency for the secret review. They did not have any objections. So the first thing is you'll make a motion to serve as lead agency. Typically, we would have done that last month, but the applicant wasn't here. Right. And then if you're ready to do it, you'd also make a motion to declare a negative declaration and refer to the zoning board for consideration of the area variances.
And do we need to make that negative declaration for it to go to the zoning board?
Yes, you do, because without a negative declaration, the zoning board cannot make any determinations with regard to the area variances.
My only concern was whether I had a 3-member board or a 5-member board or a 4-member board. Okay, with that said, on application 19-02, 249 Main Street, I make a motion to declare to make the planning board the lead agency for the secret determination. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And then
Okay.
you can, if you want to read the motions, they're on the bottom.
Okay.
Very bottom.
Motion. Do I have to do motion number 1 first?
That's
Again?
what you just did. That's fine, so
Okay.
do number 2.
All right, I thought so. Okay, again, on application 19-02, 249 Main Street, I make a motion to declare a negative declaration for application 19-02, 249 Main Street, and to refer the application to the Zoning Board of Appeals for consideration of area variances. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Now, I just want to remind the public here that this type of application is a process. It's going to go through many meetings. There should be no thought that this is the end all to this meeting, or when zoning makes a decision that concludes things. This, as you can see, there are a lot of items that have been discussed, and there's a lot of information and a lot of design that we're left to come back. And after zoning, it'll come back to us, and we will put the polish on it and make the final decision.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good evening.
You have a copy of that as well. It's on the same color paper.
Okay, all right, okay.
It's different. Cheat sheet.
Moving along, we have another housing project, 1942, 5 Ray Place. Would you please come up and introduce yourself and give us a rundown? For those tuned in and present, 5 Ray Place, this is the first time that they are before the planning board. For those might be interested in where this is, if you know where the Acme supermarket is that's closing, this location is in that immediate vicinity. That would be in the northern part of Eastchester and the kind of behind CVS, off of Brook Street.
Good evening, everyone. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Ed Vogel with Warschauer Millerzy Warschauer Architects. We are here today with John Meyer Consulting, site engineers. We're here with legal representation from our Solano Law and our client, Trinity Associates, or same. I'm going to make an introduction of the project so you have an understanding of what it is and what we're doing. I'm going to move up here to the front. This is a multifamily residential, 24 units, and it's sited at Ray Place, 5 Ray Place in particular. I apologize, these are not in the sequence that I would need. Could you arrange things? 1 through 6.
Getting off on the right start, huh?
So here's a Google map representation of the area, the neighborhood. So White Plains Road, Route 22, is on the top part of our Google map. Brook Street is running up and down on the sheet on the left side. Ray Place comes up, and this is the supermarket that was mentioned earlier. 5 Ray Place resides in between the supermarket and the CVS on Ray Place. It's interesting to note from a neighborhood perspective, the commercial corridor of Route 22, and then we have a transitional zone, which the multifamily fits right into, to 1 and 2 family, which is further away from Route 22 and a bit of Brook Street. So as a site and a use, multifamily is a good transitional use for this site.
Before you leave that, can you point out where your adjacent multifamily is? It's on the other side of the road.
Right here.
Which is what most residents of North Eastchester can see from quite a distance because it's on top of the hill.
Yes, topography. We'll get into that in a moment.
All right.
So this is our site plan, which zooms in a little bit closer onto our property that we're talking about. And there is topography, so we'll talk about that. There is a crest, a knoll that sits here, and the site itself actually terraces down, as well as the neighboring properties down to Route 22. The site is bifurcated with 2 different plateaus. They're both used. The site is currently parking at a lower level and parking at an upper level. There is retaining walls. The retaining walls are there. We're trying to work with them to prevent or to minimize our impact into the site and to the neighborhood. By doing so, we also respect the relationships to the other structures and our neighboring properties. The next sheet. Before we go there, one of the elements here I did want to talk about is that there is an existing curb cut and driveway entry into the parking lot. We've worked very hard to maintain that same location and to tie in a new curb cut to an upper parking for our purposes, which we'll talk about in the programming of the building. So I'm going to work our way from the lowest level to the highest level. Our first floor is actually the lower level of the parking lot. We've maintained that entry, as I've mentioned. We have parking in a similar configuration. There is our entry lobby. We have building services, mail, and then some storage. Again, entry and exit off of Ray Place. What we call floor 2 is also parking. That enters and exits off of Ray Place, and we turn. So the second level of parking, which is approximately the same elevation of the existing parking field, then decks over the lower level of parking. And our configuration, we have a small lobby. We continue up to our third floor, which is also typical for 3, 4, and 5. And on each floor, we have 8 apartments. The apartments are a blend of apartments, from studios to 1-bedrooms to 2-bedrooms. We do also have access to our roof. We felt that the roof access was a quality of life issue for residents. So there's a terrace area and some green space. So we do have a green roof on the project. Our site section here depicts our second floor over the top of the first floor, and then 3 levels of units. Our units have a variety to them. The studios, roughly 560 square feet. They are it's a small unit. Our 1-bedrooms range anywhere from roughly 800 square feet to about 900 square feet. Some of the configurations also have a small sitting area adjacent within the unit. There are also 2-bedroom units, and those 2-bedroom units are roughly 950 to about 1,100 square feet in size. The blend of units, we have 3 studios, 15 1-bedrooms, and 6 2-bedroom units.
That's an interesting proportion. Or more 1-bedrooms.
More 1-bedrooms. So in realizing the uniqueness of the site, and the prominence that the site has, you mentioned the other residential multifamily property that is up on the knoll. We recognize that from the start. So we've approached this as a building with 4 frontages. So when we designed the elevations, we took into account all 4 facades. And you'll notice the vocabulary as we work our way around the building. The building starts with a strong base, and this is the first floor of parking. We have a body for 3 floors, and then we crown the top in the form of a mansard. The mansard also contains the parapets. There's liveliness across the crowning of the building, and then it's anchored at the base. There are other architectural elements, such as cornice working, large open expanses of windows to make an open floor plan and light and airy units. And there are human scale factors to the facade that are very appropriate for a multifamily residential. As we work our way around, so this would be the west facade. The south facade is here. Again, the vocabulary comes around. I mentioned the horizontal defining architectural elements, and then we have strong verticals. Strong vertical for the entry, and then we've anchored the corners, as you can see as we work our way around the building. Now we work our way to the rear. You can see the upper level parking here as it would work its way through the facade, and then the lower level parking, our body of the building, and then our crowning. And then again, this would be the north facade. So the east facade and the north facade. And the architecture continues around. The elements that we're talking about for materials are on the board below. Should this be raised?
Sure. Yes, please.
Thank you, Rick. Thank you. There's a small inset here of our front facade. Our base material is here, a rusticated, more rusticated stone-looking base. This is a sample of what we're proposing. The size of this can change, and we do have this as being a larger rusticated piece. The building above that, being the body, is going to be mostly white brick. From there, we have the roof, which is kind of a scaled, it is a scaled metal roofing for the top floor, our mansards. Our trim pieces will be white and with a cornice molding across the top with panels between the windows, and then the windows themselves will be large, open, expanse windows, again, light and airy units. the window frames and colors would be an ebony or a dark black color.
And so those colors by themselves distinguish this project from the one across the street?
It certainly does. This is very formal in appearance.
Well, the other one is what, a blonde, reddish color? Brick, I don't know, well, blondish
Yes, it's
brick,
like
I
a
think.
brown. It's a
Okay.
little more typical. So there are variances, as you know, for the project. That was part of our application. We do have a notice of denial. The project as a whole, I can get into this a little bit, but basically, use is fine, our density is fine, our setbacks are fine. Where we start to ask for the variances is on height, number of stories, and feet, because we're also accessing the roof as part of our amenity. There is a bulkhead height, and then we are also within 150 feet of the R6 zone, which is a residential zone. So I didn't mention the zoning earlier, and I can go back to this, is that we are in the RB, which is retail business, as one of the permitted or uses that you can go to is the M700, which is multifamily, and that's what we've elected to pursue. So our density permitted is actually 31, but we only have 24 units. I've mentioned the mix, and then we have also complied with all the setbacks, the zoning, the yards. Where our asks are in stories, so it's 4 stories permitted, and I'm going to do this 2 ways. The first way is under the full M700 zone. So we're allowed 4 stories, we're up at 5. So there's a height increase. With that, obviously, it's also in feet, a height increase. I mentioned the bulkhead because we're accessing the roof as an amenity. There's that overlay, that residential overlay that happens as well. So this is what the arc of the line to the R6 zone is representing. Looking at this portion of the building, which is part of the overlay, we applied those regulations as well. Height by stories is increased as well. It's only 4 stories on that side, the way the topography of the site works, but permitted is 2.5. Hence, feet also need an increase, and it also captures part of the bulkhead. So the bulkhead is also an increase. Height, as you know, is taken to the top of the parapet, and it's from an average grade plane. There are some parking variances. 25-foot drive aisles or turnaround aisles is what the town would like. We have a couple instances where we only have 24 feet. So we're asking for that 1-foot variance. The other part of the variance is regarding parking spaces being bound by walls and columns. We have 5 spaces being bound by walls and columns, and we ask for a parking size reduction just to the standard 9 by 18. Third parking is regarding number of spaces. As calculated, there would be 39 required. Our project proposes 34. That finishes my presentation. If you'd like to hear questions or hear from someone else.
Do we have, the applicant, is there anything further you want to present on this?
Hello, how are you? My name is John Saracino, and Ed actually did a fantastic job. I don't actually know if there's anything else.
Well, rather than me decide, I figured you would be the best source.
We do have our engineers here who...
Well, then we should hear from them.
Yeah.
They came here, we might as well hear from them.
Thank you, Mr.
I
Chairman.
haven't heard from this gentleman for a while.
Yes, it has been a while. It's nice to be back. Good evening. For the record, my name is James Ryan, principal with JMC. We are the engineers for the project. We have received a couple of comment letters, one from Mr. Tremelli regarding the engineering. We've looked over those comments. I think a number of them are clarification for more information, so we've already started to dig into those comments too. Some of them call for some, I think, contact with the superintendent of highways too, some clarifications regarding sewer and water. So we're also working on that as well. Clarifications are being requested on, since we're looking at and we're using what now are parking lots too. When we eliminate those parking lots, some information is required as to how the existing properties that utilize these parking lots that will continue to function in terms of their compliance with zoning and so on. So we've already begun to look at a number of those issues. We don't see anything that's I think what I would consider a problem. But certainly, we've been through a development similar to this in some ways, although quite a bit larger for Summerfield Gardens too, so we know many of the issues already. So we've already started to dig in. We presented preliminary plans at this point too, but I know that Mr. Tremelli's office will be looking for some additional, so we'll be working closely with his office to try for the next time we come back to this board to address all of those issues. Some of which you heard on the previous application regarding lighting and so on too, so we'll be supplementing this application with all of that. As well, we also received comment letter from Mazer, from Mr. Greeley too, who I know is here as well, regarding the traffic and parking. As you might be aware, this is somewhat of a dead-end street too, but it comes down to Brook Street, so in particular, he wanted us to look at the Brook Street intersection too, in terms of safety, and not only that, but safety in terms of our access on Ray Place too. So our traffic engineers have already begun that work. I think it's a good time to do that before the holidays, so we're going to quickly gather that information together, provide that to Mr. Greeley and to your board so you can take a look at it. So we're already digging in on this too. Again, I think most of the issues are we can quickly satisfy, because again, a great many of them are clarifications that we have to give to the consultants to make sure that we have a solid application.
Okay. Thank you. Since we have Mr. Tremelli here, would you like to comment?
I think they've touched on most everything. As you mentioned, these are obviously preliminary plans, so our memo was more just to, highlight what we'd be looking for in future submissions, and I'm sure they're aware, and obviously they'll handle that. Some of the bigger items for us was, as mentioned, how the development would affect or impact the adjacent, or the upper, I guess, parking lot. I think they both serve what was the Acme, and just some clarification on what that upper lot will ultimately look like. The building proposed right now is bisecting a portion of that upper lot. So we'll want to see some new traffic patterns and whatever reduction in parking that would result, and whether or not we wanted some clarification, and we had some preliminary conversations with Margaret as to whether or not that parking was required for that property. It's, I guess, our understanding that it's not, after speaking with Margaret. So that was one of the comments in here.
If I could interrupt for a second, what about, there are two parking lots interrupted by the retaining wall, the lower one and the upper one.
Yes, and they're partially on the upper one and partially on the lower one, and the second half of the upper one is under a different ownership. But in any case, what you're seeing is two distinct parking lots that have been used in the past, I guess, as overflow parking for the grocery stores there. I think what Mr. Tremelli is talking about is he was concerned that somehow, as part of an approval, those were required and related to the grocery store, but they were not. I think they were part of a lease agreement with a former
Okay, so
property owner.
they wouldn't put the supermarket in jeopardy of now not complying.
That's correct, because these have nothing to do with the parking compliance for the supermarket.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, that was the clarification we were looking for, but we had subsequent conversations, and it doesn't seem to be an issue. And as the project develops, we're going to want to know
how they're going to manage stormwater on that upper parking lot, again, with now a building. That footprint is in an area that's currently includes some catch basins, and it appears to be some form of subsurface detention system. So how they're going to manage that, if that gets relocated, reworked into this plan. So we'll see that as the plan develops. I'm sure the applicant's aware, he's already mentioned, they'll be dealing with the Westchester County Health Department for sewer and water main extensions to serve the building. They're proposing improvements along Ray Place with a sidewalk connection down to Brook Street, so there'll be some interaction with the highway department to make sure that gets done to town standards. So a lot of what you see in our memo here was already touched on tonight, and I'm sure we'll be talking plenty in the near future, working through this memo, and we'll expect to see response to these and continue as the project develops. I don't know if you had any specific questions on the memo, but again,
What are the major items that they're addressing? I guess the flow into the
for us, it's
Brook Street down below, and what that capacity is, and
yeah, we'll want to make sure that similar to the other project we spoke about earlier, we've asked for a sewer capacity analysis for the building, as well as considerations for I&I reduction. So again, we'll look to the highway department, see if there's any known areas or problem areas in this specific sewer shed that maybe could benefit from some repairs to offset the projected increase in sewer load from this development. Water main extension with Westchester County Health Department and Suez Water. Stormwater design and mitigation. They have provided a preliminary stormwater report. We did note, and we've spoken briefly, the policy of the town more recently is for projects such as this to not only mitigate the net increase for the 100-year storm, but to analyze the site as if it had no impervious surface today. So they're going to be required to reevaluate the stormwater mitigation system, assuming that those two existing parking lots are something other than impervious surfaces, so whether it's a wooded area or vacant lot. Okay. So it'll overcompensate, and it'll be a conservative approach to mitigation.
Good. Okay, thank you. And Mr. Reilly?
Philip Greeley again from Mazer Consulting. We had prepared an October 15th memo with about half a dozen points relative to the project and traffic and access. From a traffic standpoint, this type of project would generate somewhere in the order of 17 or so peak hour trips in a 1 hour period. So we want to see the effect of that at the intersection of Ray Place and Brook Street at a minimum. Because of the nature of this location, we want to see sight lines, sight distances at their driveway, but also, even though it's a pre-existing intersection of Ray Place with Brook Street, to demonstrate the sight lines at that intersection. In terms of the traffic study, any traffic counts that they do right now, since Acme is vacant, they would need to put a surcharge back in, assuming reoccupancy of that space with the supermarket use, because that would change the base conditions that they would be adding on top of. Also on the initial site plan that they provided, on the aerial you can see it, but the development across the street, I think it's called the Enclave, the location of that driveway in relationship to this project's driveway should be shown on the site plan, just so we can see the turning movements and make sure there's no conflicts there. So I think those were the key points. In terms of the Brook Street intersection, I would also suggest they look at any accident history, if there is any, to see if there's any issues in the past at the intersection of Ray Place and Brook Street. And since access to this property also, it goes through where Acme is and you can get out to 22 at the light, they should at least look at the distribution of traffic. Because you have the existing multifamily project across the street, we want them to count that. That'll give us an idea of where traffic from that use exits, whether they're going left, right, and also give us a handle on actual traffic generation at that site as a kind of a guide to see what happens here. So I think those were the main points. Again, site distance, traffic analysis, at least of that intersection, and those are the key points we'd like to see.
Okay, thank you. Does the applicant have anything to follow up on these two presentations? I don't know that there is, but...
No, there really isn't. We have a full understanding, and we have an opportunity to communicate with both of these gentlemen and their firms, so we're going to take advantage of that.
Sure you do.
Move forward, so thank you.
I have two comments, maybe, Jim, while you're up at the microphone. Two things that I think you should add to whatever you're doing is I do think you need a more detailed visual analysis, and this is a completely different site than the 249 Main Street in different context. And so I think you're going to, maybe we can discuss the nature of that, but I think you're going to need a much more detailed visual analysis because of the topography and the location of this, above White Plains Road there. So that's one thing I would say. And the other thing, even though I think you're going to use the same resources and quote the same multipliers, I would still address school children generation because like the gentleman that was here previously, that is always a concern of residents. It's always very difficult for people to understand. And I think if you, again, use the standard multipliers, but also I know your firm in particular has worked on a number of multifamily buildings in the area, so it's even more credible if I think you have some actual data with regard to that. So those are my two comments. And I have a third. I would like to potentially try to coordinate with you. For 249 Main Street, we had as you heard reference, we had a staff meeting that had police, fire, building, highway, engineers. And I honestly think they sound like overkill, but I think they're very productive and you save a lot of time up front and communicate. So I'd like to try to arrange something like that, if possible, prior to the next meeting.
Okay, so we just coordinate with your office then on that?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, we'll take care of that. Thank you.
Okay. So does Mr. Salerno have anything you want to add to this?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Got a great team here.
Been a while.
They've done
Haven't
a
seen you
great
here in a
job.
while. We want to give you a chance to say hello.
Anyway, yeah, Rocco
You guys were
Solano, attorney
regulars
for
for
the
a while.
applicant. And tonight it was their deal, and we're going to follow through. I have discussed this with Margaret at length. And I'd just like to say, as far as Mr. Cimelli's comments, we just received them yesterday. So we're going to work on those. I have a few issues with some of his comments, but I'm sure we'll be able to work it out.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, then 1%, public hearing, I forgot about that. It was, my initial note said it was not a
that's
public
correct.
hearing, but it was noticed as a public
That's
hearing, correct?
Okay.
Rocco, it was noticed as a public hearing, correct? Correct. Yes, okay, so you need to open the public hearing.
Okie dokie. So this is application 19-42, 5 Ray Place. I make a motion to open this to public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone from the public? Mr. Sweeney.
I know we have a ton of engineers here, but just a word of caution, since Summerfield was mentioned, way back when, we came down to the final stretch and we didn't get it done. All my words are is caution, because if you're looking at sewerage, which was one of the final points on the Summerfield project, it obviously flowed back into the North End's area of sewerage, attempting to cross over Brook Street down Scarsdale Avenue, and possibly maybe down underneath the railroad tracks. So all I'm saying is, a word of caution, that we all have it done beforehand, and we know exactly what the implications will be, and if so, we can move forward on a positive note. That's all.
Thank you for that information. Anyone else wishing to address the board on this issue?
Good evening, members of the board. Just wanted to take an opportunity to introduce myself. My name is David Belay. I represent the ownership group at 180 Brook Street, or I should say 180 to 182 Brook Street. And I don't have an opinion at the moment regarding the project. I obviously wanted to attend the meeting and familiarize myself with the proposed project in question. Some basic comments, obviously, is I'm obviously representing the ownership group at again, a multi-use, mixed-use property as well.
Could I interrupt for a second? 180, 182 is
So
where
if
in
you want to bring up
proximity
that
to this
site
project?
plan back on the screen, I could be happy to share the location for you.
You should take the mic.
I mean, you're going to give us some valuable information, so we might as well have a perspective.
I was going to say, there we go. So, our group owns the property here that fronts Brook Street and corner lot off of Ray Place.
Okay.
Another comment I wanted to make is, are there any representatives here from the Enclave, which is a condominium building and not a rental?
Right. Well, this is the first time they're
Well,
before
right, so
us.
again, I want to make it clear for the record and the group that I don't have an opinion whether I'm for the project, against the project, or otherwise. My way of background is I understand development and I understand real estate ownership, as I come from the same background. However, the proximity of this project, given to our location, and the impact is clearly going to be of a sensitivity for us as a group, and want to make sure that if there are any adverse impacts, we want to have an opportunity to address them, and obviously take the opportunity as well to either support the project or perhaps, refine the project.
Okay, if I can interrupt again, you will have opportunities.
Understood, and I just, again, wanted to take a moment to introduce myself and even share my contact info with the group.
Ultimately, you're addressing us, and that's why I wanted to just make sure that we're following the proper protocol.
Sure.
You're addressing us, we address the applicant.
Absolutely.
And we certainly appreciate your coming here and addressing and making yourself known to the applicant, and if there's some interface that you can do,
Well, that's fine.
That's your prerogative.
But just to, again, for the record,
Go ahead.
you've opened it to the public hearing.
And it stays open, and you can address us at every meeting, and you can also email and
Sure.
come to the building department office.
Okay, so, again, you understand the location of the property we address.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the public wishing to address this? Okay, we're going to hold the public hearing open.
This is to
We have
declare,
a referral to do?
yeah, this is to declare your intent to be lead agency for the seeker review.
Okay, but yet we don't have, we can declare ourselves as lead, but we
No, you can't,
don't
you
have
can't
certain
declare
information.
yourself as lead, you're not declaring yourself as lead agency, you're declaring your intent to be lead agency.
Okay.
And that because the zoning board could determine that they want to be lead agency, and any other departments, in the case of the other application, it was DPW and Westchester County Health had to be notified of your intent.
I understand, but we aren't declaring a negative declaration
not
here
yet.
because we aren't, the lead declared the lead agency yet, and two, we don't have a lot of the information. Okay. All right, with that clear, on application 19-42, 5 Ray Place, I make a motion that the planning board declare its intent to be Lead agency for the environmental review of this application, 19-42 Five Ray Place, which has been classified as an unlisted action, and that it forward a notice of intent to all other involved agencies in accordance with secret regulations. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, with that said, that would conclude for this meeting, your presentation, and we'll move on to the next application. The public hearing remains open.
Thank you.
Okay. Next application, 19-34, Siwanoy Country Club, 1 Siwanoy Clubway. Please identify yourself, describe the project. Now, this Siwanoy has been before us several times for the master program, and what you're doing is an adjustment to that.
Sir, if you could please take that outside, we have another application. Sir? Sir? If you could just please...
So we are not looking at the major item. The major item is already underway, already under construction. We're looking at
That's correct.
A modification.
Good evening. My name is Luke Erickson from Rogers McCagg, representing Siwanoy Country Club. Chairman, members of the board, thank you for hearing me tonight. I was before you about a year ago.
We missed you at the last meeting. You were on the agenda.
We were. We had a miscommunication on who was going to be representing us here. So we were approved then for the full project, and back when we originally submitted, there was a pergola in it. We got to a point that we were doing the design development documents, and it was pulled out for budgetary reasons. It was still on the board's mind, and when we got under construction, they revisited some of our renderings and thought that it would be a good idea to reintroduce it to soften the facade of the building on the north side. So since it is a change in what has been permitted, we wanted to come before you again, and it's on the exterior of the building. We just wanted to represent that, that item.
Yes, if you would. So, amongst your presentation, do you have some renderings?
Absolutely. You want me to just...
Ultimately, I think that's what the public is
what
going
it comes down to.
Understand.
So this is the north side of the building. You see this is a kitchen addition and the grill room, which is rounded. There is no pergola in this rendering. We would be proposing adding this pergola out in front and then around the grill room addition. It extends out from the building about 12.5 feet. It's 1,200 square feet. It's mostly wood, a little bit of steel. None of the steel will be visible. It will all be wrapped in fiberglass columns, and the header will be trimmed out in wood and all painted white. We're not increasing any of the hardscape that was in the original proposal. We're just adding in the design element. The only thing that might be of concern is that we had some floodlights that were attached to the building. Now, so we don't have a stridation of light coming through the pergola. We would propose to move them out to the face of the pergola. There's also some cellular lighting within the pergola itself for dining, but that wouldn't be very bright. But I just bring it up because it is a change in the plan.
So this went before ARB. ARB had some comments?
No.
No, it did not.
No. Okay. That's all right.
Yeah.
That's all right. How far back set is this location from the road in feet?
This is
approximately 100, 200?
It's probably close to 200. So Siwanoy Boulevard is over here. This is the pergola. And then you have Archer Place here, and then Crawford Street. But Siwanoy Boulevard would be the closest. And I
Okay,
believe...
so it's quite set back.
That's correct.
And so you said that there was no hardscape increases or such, so there is no change to impervious surfaces or any of that?
That's correct. We actually had pulled the pergola out, and we were just keeping a bluestone terrace that was gonna have some overflow for seating for dining. So they, again, would like to just reintroduce it to.
Okay, very good. Any comments from the board?
Oh, it's very nice.
Thank you.
Okay, this is a public hearing?
No, it's not, and yes. So that was one comment I was going to make, and in my meeting notes I say this, just because of the nature of the application, because it's a sort of a decorative element on something that was already approved, because of the location, which I don't believe is really visible from off-site views, and because it went through a pretty detailed architectural and planning board approval process before. The planning board does have the authority to waive a public hearing under certain applications, under certain conditions. Actually, no one came to the previous public hearing, so in this case, if you feel comfortable, you can waive the public hearing. Otherwise, you can ask them to come back and notice as a public hearing.
Do I need to make a motion on that?
You do, and you can just, if you want to.
All right. You give me the words.
You're reading time.
Okay.
You keep.
All right, I make a motion to waive the public hearing for application 19-34 Siwanoy Country Club in accordance with section 11.G.3 of the zoning law. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, with that said, and no public hearing to open or close, I make a motion to approve application 1934 Siwanoy Country Club.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a great night.
And I'm sure that miscommunication was nothing that was our fault. Right? Okay, with that said, our next application, 19-29 Nelson Road. Would you approach and identify yourself and give us a rundown on the project? I like that. It's starting to get into competitions with these renderings. This guy in the back, he was
figured I'd
leading
put
the
it up
charge,
first.
you know. These things are going to get better. I can see that. You know?
Well, and I'm just going to interrupt for a minute because the Architectural Review Board is now starting to tell applicants that they are required to provide them to the planning board. So.
It's amazing what
Very
technology
helpful.
starts to do, you know. And
Hi, how are you?
okay. If you would
My name's
proceed.
John Nogin, Marcella Nogin Architects, architect for Sam and Mike who are here. The house is in an R5 zone, 7,500 square feet lot. The existing house is 1,800 square feet. We are adding 530 square feet. Most of it's on the second floor. 100 square feet is on the first floor. The scope of work on the first floor is opening up all the spaces, new kitchen, powder room, mud room, converting a three-season room to a family room. The scope of work on the second floor is a new master suite, new bathroom, closets, and a new bathroom. And a laundry. The house will end up being a 4-bedroom, 3.5 bath. Materials, the roof's going to be an architectural style asphalt roof in a dark brown. The siding's going to be a cedar style vinyl from Certainteed in sort of a gray-green color. Trims AZAC or Versatech PVC. And the windows will be white Anderson. There is a change from the Architectural Review Board. It was suggested by one of the board members to put a portico on the design, and we did. It was a good suggestion, certainly helped out, and it looks a lot better. There is surface water issues, not really an issue, that we have 149 square feet of additional impervious. We designed it for 500 square feet. We increased the amount in designing the Coltex system, so we have 3 Coltex that'll be in the back. There is no new regrading. The existing first floor footprint, just about 95% of that footprint is remaining. So there'll be very little bit of foundation work, just a small little spot of foundation work. Any questions?
Do you happen to have a site plan?
I do.
In your packet? Okay, so if you could grab the mic and just come over to the, not that site plan, but your A0.1? You have A0.1? Is that
Yes.
A0.1?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry. I only have half my plan open. That's the major part. All right. If you could just walk us through.
Yes.
Maybe describe the project and what's new.
The new portico is going to be built over the existing stone platform that's there now. We're adding a couple of steps. You'll come up the driveway, walk across a bluestone walk, and up a few steps under the portico and into the house. The footprint of the house, this little right corner in the front there, is the new footprint of the first floor. We're adding that portion so that we can make the design better. On the second floor, which is sort of the small dash line, that is the second floor. So that is anything that's diagonally hatched is new square footage. The space that is not hatched, that is, it says 2-story framed residence, that is the existing structure. That will come down and we'll have an entirely new second floor. The patio in the back, we are removing a deck, and then we're putting down a new bluestone patio on grade with a couple steps out. So you'll step out of the family room, down the few steps, and then onto that patio on grade. There is 3 Coltex in the back here, and again, I said that we're going to make them a few extra to grab some additional roof water off this single story. There are 2, nice trees in the back, which we're not going to remove. There's a tree in the front, which we're not going to move. The neighbor on the right side suggested that we plant some bushes or trees along the edge of the property line, because when they come out of their house, they look directly at our house, and they thought it'd be a nice screening. So we're proposing arborvitae, which will be tall and skinny here because it's close to the site property line. That's basically it.
Okay, good. Any questions from the board?
No.
Okay, with that said, we'll open the public hearing. I make a motion to open the public hearing on application 19-29, 72 Nelson Road. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, anyone from the public wishing to speak on this project? Seeing no one, I make a motion to close the public hearing on 19-29, 72 Nelson Road.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Then I make a motion to approve application 19-29, 72 Nelson Road. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That was, it's very nice. It goes along with the upgrades in the area, in the town.
Thank you very much.
It takes an older house and really, gives it a good updated presence. And, talking about Margaret disappeared. I was kind of addressing Margaret here, that with these renderings, we ought to even have the previous, what the previous building looked like, and you can really see how it's being changed.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much.
Very nice. Good luck.
Okay, there she goes, another disappearing act. Okay, next application, 1935, 191 Oakland Avenue.
Good evening, members of the board. Mike Finelli, I'm the architect for the project this evening. 195 Oakland Avenue. Mr. and Mrs. Nick DiMarzo were not able to be here this evening, but if I can, I'd like to walk you through the project. They actually were the homeowners of the home at 191 Oakland. They bought the house, I'm sorry, at 195 Oakland. They bought the house directly to the left. I actually did the addition for them on 191 back in 2007. They wanted the property to the left at 191 because it was a similar size house, much bigger piece of property. There's also an existing pool on the property that they'd like to keep and renovate the house. So basically, just very quickly, the footprint does not get any larger. We are adding 1,360 square feet to the second floor, which is basically a cape. So we're going to be lifting the entire second floor to get that additional square footage. We are removing a deck that sits off the rear elevation of the house. If I can, I'll approach and point some of these things out to you.
Yes, please, thank you.
Sorry about that. So there's an existing deck at the back of the house that we're removing, and we're adding a porch to the left-hand side of the house. We're enclosing a recessed area in order to create a portico and give the front of the house a little bit more character. My renderings aren't as beautiful as some of the ones you've seen tonight, but just to kind of give you a quick visual representation of what we're talking about doing. So we're adding an entire second story, lifting the roof, adding a portico to the front of the house. We're going to add a gable across the garage and basically a bump out on the front to give the home a little bit more character. Before I go into the architecture, I'll just speak about the site plan. As I was saying, the pool sits in the back left-hand corner. That's going to remain. We are going to renovate it. There is a pool deck that goes around it. We are not increasing the impervious surface in any way. We're not increasing the footprint of the house in any way. So basically what you see is what you get. It's just being renovated. As I said, they did do the renovation to the house to the left. So that same type of detailing, level quality is what they proposed to this house as well. If I can just quickly go through the architecture. We propose a hardy plank siding, a metal standing seam in a gray finish. We're going to do a metal standing seam roof throughout the entire house. The homeowner wanted maintenance-free, never have to come back and do a roof again. He's kind of done building. He wants to do this one and be done with it. So we're going to do standing seam everywhere. We're going to do white AZEK, and we're going to do a gray granite stone at the base of each column and around the porch columns as well. And again, just to give it a little bit more heft and weight the house a little bit more. Give it a classic look as well. The garage will be a clopay white finish door. All the windows and trim will be, as I said, in white. The rendering actually shows the I guess the Architectural Review Board filing. What I mean by that is we proposed a vent over the garage door. The Architecture Review Board actually asked us to remove that and put in a window rather than the vent. If I can, I'll actually show you that drawing. They requested 3 different changes. One of them was add a window at the gable end of the garage. The second was to add some trim work to break up the verticalness of this one piece, which I designed specifically, when you look here, to kind of mimic what was going on the house on the right to bring that rhythm through. And again, the idea is to keep the garage levels at the same height since they're at the same elevations basically, just to kind of start creating more of a streetscape, tying it together as we're coming across. The next house to the left is a cape, so it's going to be set a little lower, but the porch line and the banding does tie into it, and it does make it more cohesive. The second thing they asked us, the third thing they asked us to do, other than the banding and adding maybe a different material in the gable ends, was to make the columns a little bit thicker. I actually had two 6-inch columns, which visually would have been more substantial, but I think they liked the idea of just one beefier, more massive column. So we went to a 10-inch column rather than a 6 or a pair of 6s. And I think it adds a little bit more character. We were okay with all the comments, and we weren't opposed to any of them. So that was kind of the detailing and how we got to where we are now. I can keep going, or I can answer questions and move this along, show you materials, whatever you guys want.
You said they were keeping the pool, but you're actually redoing the pool? Based on the
There's a pool that exists now in the back left-hand corner of the property.
You're redoing it and changing the shape, so
Yeah,
it'll still
right.
be a pool, but not this pool.
It's going to be of similar size, but it's just going to be a simple rectangle rather than a kidney shape. And then they're just going to fix the flagstone. If you actually go to the property, you can see it's falling in on itself.
Okay.
Just clean it up. I guess it's been in disrepair for quite a number of years, so it's time to upgrade it and fix it so the neighbors don't see that.
You gonna do any any additional landscaping?
So right now, again, the detailing is going to be very similar to what was next door, and he overdid it. So we proposed some arborvitae, and he just overdid it. So to lie to you and say
I
that
don't see anything on the plan.
yeah, right now I'm just proposing a row of arborvitae here, just for some privacy. But they're going to
It'll
keep
be
what's there and
overdone.
add to it.
It'll be overdone, okay, I get that. Well, it speaks well of you that, you know, the same applicant brought you over and speaks of your work.
Yeah.
Haven't heard that from John's, but.
Does make you feel good.
Any further comments? Oh, there's a public hearing, right?
Yes.
Okay. Make a motion to open the public hearing on application 1935-191 Oakland Avenue. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, anyone in the public here in the public wanting to speak on this application? Seeing no one, I make a motion to close the application, public hearing on application 19-35-191 Oakland Avenue.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any further comments?
Nope, good.
Okay. Yeah, you were saying?
Nope, all good.
No, it's very nice. Good luck with it.
Thank you.
He always does good work.
Excuse me?
He always does good work.
Thanks.
Okay, I make a motion to approve application 1935-191 Oakland Avenue. I hear second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Good night.
All right, next application, 19-22, 5 Brazzi Road. Wow, a lot more to go. Guess they're all Johns after this. So there's 3 applications left, so that means that one of you goes twice. Is that you?
Adamo,
Okay.
yes.
Good evening, board members again. My name is Adamo Majorano from Community Designs and Engineering. On behalf of the owner and applicant, Nicholas Pimpinella, we are proposing additions and alterations to 5 Brazzi Road. The site is located in the R7.5 district. As it exists today, the dwelling is a 2-story Cape-style home with bedrooms on the first floor and second floor. What the owner wishes to do is create more of a modern style today's living with living space on the first floor and all the bedrooms on the second floor. So essentially what we're doing is building a one-story addition over the footprint of the existing dwelling, as well as some alterations as well. There's a rear one-story addition that was constructed at one time over an areaway into the basement. So in part of this project, we're removing that one story and gaining that areaway access back to the basement. We'll go to the elevation. So as far as the aesthetic updates and alterations to the house, it will be receiving all new finishes throughout. The bottom half of the front will be a stone veneer, and the rest of the house will be cladded with a fiber cement board siding. It will be a light gray color. The entry door, as it exists, is on the side of the house. We're going to relocate that to face the front. We're proposing a new portico and front porch covered area in the front. All of the trim will be white AZAC. The windows trim is Anderson 400 series windows with black trim, black garage and front door. As far as the rest of the house goes, again, the trim is of white AZAC, with the gutters will sort of pop with the windows. They're black aluminum gutters around the house as well. In the site planning. So yeah, there's existing condensers located behind the existing one story. They will remain. They will get updated and screening around them. All the additional impervious surfaces will be capturing on site with stormwater mitigation. In streetscape, in comparison to the neighboring dwellings, it'll still sort of keep that cohesive feel along the street, although what we're essentially doing is increasing the ridge height by about 6 feet from the existing to the new. This is sort of a rendering to get a little feel of what the new house would sort of look like, and then the owners will, do new landscaping throughout. As far as lighting, typical lighting is soffit lighting on the entry, sconce lighting in the rear door in the back, and I believe that's about it.
The ARB have any questions?
Good,
comments?
yes. So yeah, there wasn't really comment, the only suggestion the ARB had was to potentially look at a standing seam metal roof on this front porch and the small accent roof over the garage, but the owner is very in favor of sort of keeping the materials the same, roofing throughout. It's a black charcoal asphalt shingle roof, so it'll be the same on the main roof as it is the porch roof and portico roof.
There was a recommendation, and you discussed it with the owner, and you made your decision. Okay, any comments from the board? This is in an R75 zone. So if anyone's looking at the massing of the house, it's an R75 zone.
And we did receive a zoning variance approval for this particular project. It's actually about 6 inches. The existing house encroaches the side yards about 6 inches, and we wanted to build up over the existing, so we're increasing the nonconformity by a very small amount.
Okay, I make a motion on application 19-22, 5 Brassey Road, to open the public hearing. Any second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, seeing no one present to address this, I make a motion to close the public hearing on 19-22, 5 Brassey Road. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, with that said, any further comments, any further?
Like it.
Okay, I make a motion to approve this application, 19-22, 5 Brassey Road. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And you're next up again, right?
There you go.
Did you work this out with John so that you didn't have to sit down for a while?
John must not be nice to Margaret, who got last.
What is that?
Must not be nice to you and got last.
He
Go
mentioned
outside and warm
that
up
to
a
me
bit,
earlier
and get ready.
today.
I mean,
I did do it on
Well,
purpose.
what'd you do, John?
like Adamo better.
Okay, I didn't introduce this. This is application 19-36, 16 Crawford Street. Now, before we get into it, is this the one that we are involved in and Bronxville is also involved in?
Yes, half of the properties in the town of Eastchester, the front half of the properties within the town of Eastchester, the back half of the property is within the village of Bronxville. The applicant did appear before the Architectural Review Board. They're appearing before you now. We did notify the village of Bronxville, and they'll review the application as well. We're not sure exactly what the approval process will be there, but a condition, if you were to approve it this evening, a condition would be that we cannot issue the building permit until we get confirmation from the village that they've obtained all proper approvals. The applicant also noticed residents within the village of Bronxville as well, you know, within the 200-foot radius, so.
Yeah.
Okay, with that clarified, would you
Yes.
present the project?
100%. Yeah, again, Dalma Majorano from Community Designs and Engineering. On behalf of the applicant, Gregory Holcomb, we are proposing a new residence at 16 Crawford Street. This project as well is located in a R7.5 district. What we are doing is essentially removing the existing dwelling, all of the existing impervious surfaces. In regards to the difference in the site of our proposed project, what we are doing is relocating essentially the curb cut and driveway to the left-hand side of the residence versus the right-hand side. As it exists today, it's right adjacent to the neighboring curb cut, so they're kind of making a big, street opening area. So what we're trying to do is improve the streetscape of that and create a little more consistency with the curb cuts as far as the neighboring residents go. It also, the existing driveway extends off of the property line, so as we remove that, we'll, finish that area. It'll be a grass area on the side yard and reposition the house in similar, footprint as it is now, just trying to achieve some more side yard space, usable side yard space instead of the driveway as it exists today, wrapping around the side of the residence. In relationship to site planning, again, condensers will be located, screened along the left side of the property. There is a landscape plan attached to the project that was done by Anthony Acasella. A lot of the existing screenery around the property line will try to be maintained and kept. No significant trees will be removed. And then additional landscaping will be proposed around the residence and also along the property line to help screen and fill in some of the gaps of the existing area. Sorry. Just go. So, in regards to the elevations, again, very sort of consistent with the neighborhood. We are doing a white hardy plank siding throughout the house, a standing seam metal roof in the front portico. Columns will be, that area will have stone veneer and stone veneer on the base of the columns. The garage doors and front door are as depicted in the elevation. Clopay garage door and Therma-Tru front door be cladded in a wood grain finish. The windows are Anderson, typical simulated divided light, colonial style grid pattern with the 6/1. The AZAC trim board, white on the soffits and windows and trim, black charcoal asphalt shingle roof. Other than that, we'll go to the streetscape, I guess. So yeah, the streetscape is what it looks like as it is in the context. This house to the right is not necessarily right adjacent to it. It's actually totally in Bronxville and sort of behind the residence. It's very hard to see from the street, but it's sort of back there. So I tried to, demonstrate as best as possible. There is a bunch of screening and everything that's really non-visible with that residence. Other than the aesthetics of the house, as far as, stormwater goes, again, we did receive comments from Joe Tremelli, very basic comments that we'll continue to develop. Mostly what we're doing is, we're capturing 100% of all of the stormwater, the newly proposed impervious surfaces, not just the new proposed, all of the proposed impervious surfaces on site with stormwater mitigation. We are actually decreasing the overall impervious surfaces, which kind of helps by about 500 square feet. So the existing is, there is no known stormwater mitigation for the existing house, and the proposed will be less, and we will obviously capture all of that stormwater on site. Yeah, that's.
Any comments from the board? I had two comments. The driveway is what finish?
It's asphalt driveway.
Asphalt?
Yeah.
Okay. And I had problems tracing the chimney. Did you have a fireplace?
No, there is no fireplace, no.
No?
The owner's trying to
No
keep quiet.
fireplace.
Yeah.
Can
no.
approve that.
On A1, it says majestic fireplace.
Oh, yeah, it's a direct vent. There's no actual chimney to it, just a direct vent fireplace.
Okay.
So
That's what I thought you would say.
sorry.
I thought maybe you just left it out of the drawing,
No, yeah, it would. So basically, yeah, it would exit through the middle of.
I would get 2
Yeah.
points if you did,
Yeah. So it'd be on that side elevation, just there's no actual chimney.
Okay,
just
got it.
Direct vent.
All right. Okay, this is public, it's going to be a public hearing, so I make a motion on application 19-36, 16 Crawford Street, to open the public hearing. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Seeing no one in the public prepared to speak on this, I make a motion to close the public hearing on application 19-36, 16 Crawford Street. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, moving on, I make a motion to approve application 19-36, 16 Crawford Street. Do I have a second?
Aye.
Just before you, do that.
Okay.
Oh, yes, thank you. With the condition of approval that we cannot issue the building permit until we get verification from Bronxville that you've obtained all the necessary approvals there.
And site plan? for-
Oh, the landscape
for landscape?
architecture plan?
Yes, he
Yes,
needs
thank you.
After all these years,
I'm starting to fade out a little bit. Yes.
You
and-
had
I've been waiting.
Well, actually, in final review and approval by the engineering
By the engineer,
consultant, and we need the letter from the landscape architect certifying that the landscape plan has been installed according to the approved plan. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All of those
Late
are
night.
conditions, and with that said, do I have a second on the approval?
Second.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye. Not as easy with Jim
It's the
does,
group
is it?
chairmanship at this point.
Newfound
You
respect.
just-
Thank you.
I had a flow going there. You interrupted.
I know, sorry.
One more.
And there's John coming up for
John was the
application
first guy here tonight.
19-37, 16 Pasadena
Ray.
Road.
I might even think Phil's a little better than you at this.
All right.
Oh, no, sorry.
Okay. Good evening. My name is John Yanacito. I'm an architect, and I'm representing Mr. and Mrs. Gangemi, the owners of the subject property. We are proposing additions and alterations to the existing single-family residence located at 16 Pasadena Road. So the scope of work will include a one-story addition at the rear and side of the existing residence, which is highlighted here. A second-story addition over the existing footprint, which is highlighted here, and a new entry portico highlighted in red at the front here. Here are the elevations, existing and proposed. It's the existing elevation. It's currently a cape. So we're looking to remove the existing dormer in the front portion of the roof here and create a new shed dormer with a new gable end over this section here and a new entry portico. Side entrance, the side elevation showing the second-story addition. So the rear already has a shed dormer, so we're just repeating that shed dormer over at the front, and then the new gable. And here is the existing rear elevation. This is the existing shed dormer along the rear, and then this is the new addition at the side of the existing residence. And then the left side showing the second-story addition and the new gable at the front.
Can you show the front again? Front?
Front elevation. So here is existing and proposed. So we're removing the dormer and the front portion of the roof and the gable here, doing a new shed dormer along the whole front and a new gable with a new portico. Here's a rendering of the front, showing the new shed dormer, gable, and the portico. So on the materials, the proposed wall surfaces will be a hardy plank siding in a Arctic white finish. The existing brick will remain on the garage and will be cut down along the front here and painted white. The existing stone veneer will remain. The new roof shingles will be asphalt in a charcoal black finish. The trim will all be AZEK painted white. The columns will be AZEK painted white. Windows will be vinyl clad in a white finish to match existing. Gutters will be aluminum in a white finish to match existing. And the new entry, the front entry door will be fiberglass in a black finish. The application was presented to the Architectural Review Board on October 3rd, and it was approved with one recommendation, and that was to add windows at the side on the second floor here in the existing bedroom. The elevation that I presented to the Architectural Review Board had no windows on this side, so we're adding 2 new windows there. That's it. I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Okay, any questions from the board?
No, thank you.
This is a public hearing, so I make a motion. Open the public hearing for application 19-37, 16 Pasadena Road. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, seeing nobody any longer present, I make a motion to close the public hearing on application 19-37, 16 Pasadena Road. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any questions from the comments from the board? Any conditions that Mark wants to require? Are there any
stipulations.
Is there any landscaping to this project that we need a landscaping design on?
It's an addition, so it's not required.
Okay.
We're doing a little bit of landscaping at the front here, because currently the entrance door is at the side here, so the walkway leads to the side entrance, so we're gonna be doing a little bit of new landscaping right here in the front.
Okay. And the water collection is,
Yeah, the
Impervious
increase in
surface has changed?
surfaces is 89 square feet, so we will add 1 dry well to pick up the runoff from that additional impervious surface.
okay, and that gets submitted and approved?
Yes, that's reviewed by our plan reviewer.
So that's a condition, right?
Well, that's not a condition, that's required of everybody as part of the building permit review.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Just trying to get it right this time. All right.
Well, let me just explain, the difference is, for the new construction, Joe Tremelli reviews it, so it's subject to his review and approval. For additions and alterations, we review them in-house as part of the building permit process.
All right, with that said, I make a motion to approve application 19-37, 16 Pasadena Road. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you.
Good luck, John.
Thank you.
And with that said, I make a motion to close the planning board meeting of October 24th. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Good night, everyone.